Let's go ahead. Alright, hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to Play It Painted Live. Hope you guys are having a good, what is it, Tuesday? It's a Tuesday evening. And believe it or not, I've been trying to stream since 2 Sundays ago. 2 Sundays ago, been trying to stream. But I have some very good excuses cooked up for you. They're not that good. But, you know, I'll put it to you this way. I was working on some stuff, frankly, and I'm just being honest, but I was working on some stuff that just is not good for streaming. Okay, it was a batch paint. It was kind of a rough batch paint, but it was not good for streaming. And so I figured the way I had my workstation set up for this, because it was such a huge batch paint, that you can't run a camera and do it. So not good for streaming at all, for various reasons, that probably being the main one. Oh, hey, what's up? Hey, David. Good to see you, buddy. So yeah, could not stream what I'd been working on for the past about a week and a half. And then the other excuse really is that I've just been spending more time in the evening with my kids, which I think is a great excuse, actually. I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna. I don't think anyone. I'll put it this way. I don't think anyone reasonable is gonna take issue with me spending some more time in the evening with my kids and my wife, and watching some movies and just kind of enjoying our time in the evening. So we had a little bit more time tonight as well, but yeah, the boys are it's just taking them a little bit longer to get ready for bed and to fall asleep. So we're working on all of that stuff. But I did manage to get through a couple of different commissions. The last one, the Infinity Aristea commission, was probably stream worthy, but because it happened over the Thanksgiving holiday, there just wasn't good time to like kick the camera on and get on and paint with you guys. So I do apologize for that, but we're back on. As you can see, we're working on a couple of night models tonight, and we got some really good sculpts. Okay, as you can see, I'm working on classic Batgirl outfit right now, and she is fantastic. Okay, this is a great sculpt. This is a great sculpt, and I'm really excited to be working on her. Let me show you what else is in the pipe. So we've got the two that we're going to work on tonight. Mainly is going to be her classic Batgirl, and then I also have some Rebirth Nightwing, and you can see the major colors on him are already blocked out. I mean, for some people, they would say, okay, the miniature's painted, I just paint the base now, and we're okay. And I wouldn't fault you for that. I mean, once you get the major colors down on Nightwing, considering the major color is black, once you get that color down, it's pretty easy what you need to do next. And we're going to work on the blue a little bit tonight. We're going to try to give some character to the rest of the outfit, and I'll maybe just kind of give you the illusion of different textures here between the dark hair, the baton, and the outfit here. But yeah, that is what we're going to work on tonight. I don't know how long I'll be streaming, but I'm happy to hang out with you guys as always, and we'll just get working here. So hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Mine was decent. It was pretty good. The food was very good. Obviously, the company was very good. It can be a little bit of a difficult time in the year for me. Full disclosure here, because this is think I actually, my mother passed away on Thanksgiving about 6 years ago. So it's, not the most recent thing, but especially because it's a holiday and because Thanksgiving is kind of naturally one of those things that you associate with family. It's a thing. Hey, what's up, Jose? Um, but that said, it was still had a lot to be grateful for, and it was a good, still a good vacation, or I should say holiday overall. I haven't taken any vacation yet. Um, but yeah, so we are gonna work on some Nightwing here, just touching up the blue. I want to make sure that all of this stuff all the lines are nice and clean before we get in here and really start highlighting, things. And Nightwing is such a simple design, but it's funny. It's this design is I struggle with this. I know a lot of other painters struggle with this because it's like, what do you do? There's so it's okay. Once you get to this point, we're like, okay, I've got all the major colors blocked out, but now what? And he's really only the two colors on a macro sense. There's still three different kinds of black on here, and so that could be interesting. Okay, so anyways, um, let's let the cleanup dry for a second. Swap over to Babs here, and one of the things we need to do, as you can see, I only have one coat of this intense blue on the cape and cowl. Okay, and it should be a more dull blue, if I'm being honest. The original costume was kind of a flatter grayish blue. So I'm going to back off the intense blue, and I'm going to add in, like a flat blue from Vallejo, which will take it into sort of a more muted tone here. And then from there, what paint brand am I using? I'm using a few different paint brands, but the two main ones that I'm using are AK Gen 3, which I'm going to tell you right. Oh, okay. AK Gen 3 and Vallejo. Okay. So you guys know I'm a big Vallejo guy. I also really like Reaper. But I would say primarily I was a big Vallejo guy. But I'm just going to come out and say right now, AK Gen 3 is the real deal. Okay, it is everything that I could hope for in a paint line right now. It is so good, and I'm just become such a big AK fanboy, just based on their Gen 3 paints. Literally can swap out, pot for pot. I can swap out all my Vallejo paints for AK, and I would be a happy man. There's still maybe one part of the palette that I would want to check before I do that. But, to give you an example, Vallejo Model Color Black is something that I typically like to rave about. I think Vallejo Model Color Black is the best black paint you could buy for painting miniatures. Hands down. Hands down. I know all the homeboys were talking about Scale 75 back in the day. Scale 75 black is the best black. Nah. I will put that to the test any day of the week. Vallejo Model Color Black will destroy, yes, I said it, that will destroy Scale 75 black any day of the week. And I've had some like reputable painters, after having that argument with them, come back and say, you know what, you're right. Vallejo Model Color Black, not Game Color Black. Do not confuse those two. Very, very, very different paints. But the model color black is one of the best. I, I thought it was the best black you can buy. I thought it was irreplaceable. I treated Vallejo model color black as irreplaceable. You cannot, you have to get specifically that brand and specifically that pot of paint if you want to have a decent black to paint your miniatures with. And today I'm happy to tell you that that is, in my opinion, again, that is no longer the case. Okay, it's no longer the case because of the existence of this AK black. AK black, I'm saying it right now, as good as Vallejo model color black. I know. People who know me well might be freaking out a little bit by that statement because they've seen me pay $35 for a set of paints to get one Vallejo model color black. And I will literally give away the rest of the paints in that set just so I can have Vallejo model color black. Well, I'm happy to report today that if you cannot find Vallejo model color black, you can use that AK black and you are in good hands. That's what I'm saying. Okay, that's my story. I'm sticking to that. That's what I'm going with. You can see how gray, how much more gray Barbara is now. So we're going to go two different directions. You can see I started with the same black. I'm sorry, the same blue on both models. Okay, let me show you the blue. And I'm a fanboy. I'll tell you right now. Star Blue from AK. Okay, both of these colors were Star Blue. So this one is still Star Blue. And we want to kind of brighten this up and highlight it up. Okay, so I do not want to go with Vallejo, that Vallejo flat blue. That'll turn it dull. We want to go the opposite direction, actually. Okay, so I'm going to go with a little bit of fluorescent blue, which again, okay, here I'm fanboying out again. AK Gen 3, their technical paints off the charts good. Okay, fluorescent blue, their fluorescent set, one of the best set of paints I've ever bought. Right? Luminous green ink, fire. Okay, awesome, love it. Luminous green ink, awesome. Their skin tones, fire. Using their skin tones on these models, so good, guys. Do not fall asleep on AK Gen 3. Love it. I'll do it for free. I will tout you for free, AK. That's just how dope I think your brand of paint is. All right. If you don't like AK, sorry, but I'm a fan. I'm just coming out clean right now. I have become a massive fanboy of AK Gen 3 paints. So good. All right. Now, if they can get me a set of shaders like Ammo Mig has, I think I'm done. I think it's time for me to just retire from trying out different brands of paint because AK has crossed the finish line. They've just done it, right? And I know people are going, well, what about contrast paints? What about... Yeah, Citadel still makes great paints, okay? Not going to lie. They still make great paints. I find them highly replaceable, though. Highly replaceable. If you've done some research and you've shopped around a bit, I think you can replace your Citadel paints, and I think any painter who's willing to put in for a little bit more experience with different lines can easily replace their contrast paints. I do like them as a shortcut for blocking colors and for massive batch paints. So I will say that, right? Contrast paints are purpose built, and if you can determine, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do with those contrast paints, you will not be disappointed in them. They're not very forgiving when you screw up, but they're decent. You'll see. I'm going to actually block a lot of this basing with contrast paints. Okay. Okay. Mr. Grayson looking pretty sharp. So that fluorescent blue went down. We're going to highlight this again. Oh, okay. Have a good night, Dave. Thanks for popping in. Yeah, check out AK. Love them. I love them. I love them for advanced painters. I love them for experienced painters who are looking to really kind of up their game. I like them quite a bit. Never been able to good look. Yeah. Oh yeah, the skin tones are difficult to say the least. They're difficult to get right, and I think it is so. Contrast paints are so highly substrate dependent that yeah, that your experience is definitely not a unique one. A lot of people swear off the skin tone contrast paints, and I got some mixed results with them myself. Right, I've kind of gotten to the point where like, okay, I can figure out based on how the model was prepped and the tone, what it looks like, and the smoothness, what I can get away with regarding the skin tone. All right, so we're gonna touch up this yellow while Mr. Grayson's blue, latest layer of blue is drying. All right, so I'm gonna. So this is Vallejo Game Color Moon Yellow, which is fun. Which is a very good paint. And I should point out that this undercoat is Iandin Yellow contrast paint. So I used Iandin Yellow over what is basically a white zenithal prime to start the Batgirl's design here. Okay. And you just highlight with, just gonna highlight with Moon Yellow. Yeah. Vallejo skin tones I used to use quite a bit. I find while they're very good, very, very good paints, that you can actually end up, they tend to chalk up, and that kind of drives me crazy. Skin tones will have that problem just because they tend to be very, very high pigment, so they will chalk up quite a bit. And then that's another area where, in my opinion, AK surpasses Vallejo again. Is AK skin tones, I think, in my experience, have been less likely to chalk. They're very similar in their tones. The AK Gen 3 tones are almost identical to Vallejo model color. Okay. It's pretty good so far. Pretty good. Okay. So let that dry again. Switch back to Mr. Grayson here. You can see that blue's getting a lot deeper. So we're going to tone it up. We're going to highlight it, but we're going to be very selective about how this highlight goes, okay? So bear with me for 1 second. This is unusual highlight. I'm actually going to use a glaze I'm going to make a glaze. I'm going to use this really weird color, Surf Aqua from Reaper, and I'm going to mix a little bit of ABT 502 glaze medium. All right, it's going to give me a little bit more open time and a little bit of transparency. Yeah, no, that's a fair. If you have skin tone that's working for you, my advice is to not change it. But I like to shop. I like to look. I'm still, even though I'm happy with a particular paint or product, I'm always looking at other lines. And the reason has to do with the fact that like a lot of these paint companies have gone under, right? Or they can be hard to distribute. AK, as much as I love it, is on the same sort of distribution uh, path that Vallejo typically is. So I know I can have there will be spells where I'm going to have a hard time finding AK or the right AK paints that I want. Similarly with Vallejo, and it's part of the reason why I like keeping both lines in the repertoire so that I can swap between them. Right when the shop. Oh, my son's calling. Hold on one sec. Let's see what he wants. Sit tight, folks. I'm going to mute my mic here for a second. Okay. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, I was talking about running Vallejo paints and AK, right? And the fact that I like to supplement my go-to lines because you always need a backup, right? So like I was saying earlier, if Vallejo model color black is not available, well, I got AK black. If their black gray is not available, I have rubber black. From and if their deep skin tone is not available, I have the AK beige red skin tone, right? So it's just good to do that. You can't find those sets available. The World War. Okay, yeah. The Panzer Aces. Panzer Aces locally you can only find at Brookhurst Hobbies. If Brookhurst doesn't have Panzer Aces, the only other place I've seen them two other places. You're gonna have to travel, because if Brookhurst doesn't have Panzer Aces, I have found Panzer Aces at two other places. One is at Ease Games in San Diego. The other is GMI Games in Riverside. And that is that's what I would tell you. If you really, and Panzer Aces has some great paints in there. But yeah, if you're looking for that, that's my recommendation. Right? So so you can see I'm building up some highlight here on the blue. And because there's like no real hard edges on this model, it's best to do your highlights like a glaze, so that it just kind of, so you can kind of float it and push it around, right? Push it around to where the light's gonna hit it. And frankly, I like these style models where there's not a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of like hard edging or that sort of thing to do it, because that kind of tedium kind of bugs me. Okay, pretty good. But now they don't have them, which is why I'm glad I just yoinked them when I saw them. Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? Is you you will want to do that. Okay, so similar property here. I've thinned the rubber black a little bit with some cloudy gray. May not have cut that enough. Yeah, probably. Okay, hold on. Let's just cloudy gray. Let's make a cloudy gray glaze. Okay. Okay. So cloudy gray glaze, same basic principle here. Right, using this as a glaze. And as this dries down, it's going to be very subtle. But the nice thing about using this is it's going to give the model a little bit of depth to the black, right? So yes, it isn't all, he's wearing basically all black, but you're going to get these little areas of depth without like totally destroying the sculpt, right? Without totally distracting from all the nice like musculature and all that. And it's actually a pretty nice way, you can see there, it's actually a pretty nice way to grab, to let light kind of roll off the skin tone. Or it's not the skin tone, the muscle tone, I should say. Right. And then the other thing you can do is just not do it on the tool or on the gloves, because you want those to look darker. So now we've got a model that your eye is still convinced is black, but you're seeing, now you're going to start to see like the tones and stuff, or the lighting kind of bouncing off that miniature. Okay. Very cool. Okay. One last little highlight on the blue that I want to do is I want to do like a true sky blue. And I might use some of that aqua glaze on Barbara as just the top edge highlight, right? Okay, right, so I want the top of the head here, the little falcon, the little Nightwing symbol. And I want, so I'm going to try to just get the top edge there of the design. As the glaze is still partly open, you'll see it kind of blending with the glaze medium a bit, which is actually quite good. It's kind of what we want, right? So we are getting a sharp, you're getting to see like some of the sharper lines of the design. See? And I'll just continue. There we go. And you can really kind of see it there. You're going to see I'm going to bring all of these elements together. I love these kind of commissions where it's like, it's just really nice, nice areas to blend, right? Really let color kind of dictate, color and light dictate what people's eyes are going to be drawn to on the model. And his rules are pretty dope in the BMG game. This guy is kind of a terror on that game. He's gonna KO, knock people out very quickly. He's just excellent in combat, and he's very fast. He's got decent defense. The main thing with characters like this is you don't want to get them like caught flat-footed with some like random thug who rolls well on machine gun shot. Even with the acrobats, the acrobat and the dodging and all that stuff, you just don't want to, you don't want to die to something ridiculous like that. Okay, pretty good, pretty good. So I'm getting nice lighting effect off of Nightwing here. Right, and you can continue to blend up areas of the design. Okay. Babs, does she really need? I don't know. This might be too light. Let's have a look. That's not too bad. As long as I'm sparing with it, it's not too bad. Right. Do a little bit of highlighting on the batarang. Right. Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay. With her though, you actually don't really need to. You don't really need to do much of that to get the stuff to pop. It's pretty, she's got pretty good lines as it is. Okay. So I guess what's next now Ooh, see, that was too much. Luckily, that's on an underside that no one sees. The rest of this is okay. I can just do this. Right? All right. Let's go ahead and... Oh, man, maybe not. It just seems... That just seems too light. Let's calm that down a little. Especially where, like, the sculpt, the resin is just a little too rough, so it looks textured. That's kind of bad. All right. Let's look at her actual base that she's on is actually not that exciting. But let's get some tone going on the chimney, right? So I'm going to just use this black red as a tone. And I know it looks super bright right now. You're just going to have to trust me on this process. Okay. What I don't want to do is make it too opaque right now, right? Because we're gonna build layers on this model to give it the right texture and depth, basically. Okay. Also, I don't want to go too ham on this chimney because I don't want the chimney to be the main focus of the model. I want your eyes to be on Batgirl, obviously. Okay. It's pretty good. All right. Let's see if I have a good brown for this. I want to get kind of a messy brown, if that makes sense. I don't think that even makes sense. I kind of want to get a messy brown onto the little pipes there, but that's not the right brown. Well, could be. Yeah. Let's make it so. Let's make it such that it is. Right? Right, I'm gonna get a little brown on here. These almost look brass in the studio art. These bits here. And you'll see how this all kind of ties in. The next step, Batgirl is moving along pretty well. I'm glad BMG is kind of back on the menu for us locally. I missed playing it. I really do enjoy it as a as a game system. It's very, very fun. It's more for me, it's more the tactical side of where I want to be on my like skirmish games, as opposed to like MCP, which, don't get me wrong, MCP is my jam. I play a lot of MCP, but to me, MCP is kind of bland in its approach of walk your guys forward, do attacks, and that's basically what you're doing. Walk your guys forward, do attacks, and then you have some interacting with objectives. But it's all pretty similar, if you want my honest opinion. It's like it's not the deepest thing for MCP. The way the sort of repetitiveness of the missions, the scenarios, I should say. Yeah. Okay. And then let's do this grading here. Actually, what am I doing? I have a really nice like black to make this grading look metal or steel. Okay. And then the last thing we're going to do is I kind of want another brown, a much lighter brown. On these shingles. Okay, just gonna get a lighter brown on the shingles here. And we'll let that dry. Right, and then we're gonna approach that kind of the final steps in her. Let's move back over to Mr. Nightwing. And that's really interesting looking. That's really interesting looking. Huh. Okay, well, let's see if I can get kind of a copper or like a steel, an oxidized steel look at it. It actually doesn't look too bad. What if here's what I want to do. Actually, let's do, oh yeah. Okay, bear with me, guys. I'm trying out something. Okay. Hey, what's up, Atomico? How you been, man? Welcome to the feed, sir. Thank you. Yeah, welcome to the feed. Hope you're doing well. I see you are still sculpting some really fantastic projects. And I still have a great deal, I have a tremendous amount of interest in the genres that you pick for your sculpts, because they are unlike everything else that you can find out there today. You know, and I mean that in the best way, right? Like you're a fan of old school kung fu and you know, the old classic style, some of the older classic style fantasy and horror. Like that's stuff that is, you just don't see too many sculptures, especially like the last kung fu set that you put out. Like you just don't see that. Nobody's making those kinds of miniatures. Most of everybody else's miniatures are kind of, you know, the same 2 or 3 genres. Like, oh, here's my sci-fi robot guy. Here's my you know, here's my classic Lord of the Rings style, or Tolkien-esque, I should say, style fantasy sculpts. These are D&D minis, right? Regular D&D minis. And I don't mean to like badmouth them. What I'm trying to say is that, you know, we're seeing with your stuff, we're seeing we're just seeing these underrepresented genres, which are great. That frankly, I think that has to do a bit with, the age of the audience, right? I would say, and I'm going to say this respectfully, I would say that uh, that we are of a certain generation and we grew up on those things that are not right. They haven't been picked up by the commercialized nostalgia bug that's like, oh, you like Hot Wheels? Well, you'll remember Hot Wheels. Or, do you like this? You guys like this? Well, we remember this. But there's stuff like that classic Kung Fu, the old school, like movie macabre, um, some of those other genres that it just doesn't get picked up. It just, in the miniature sculpting world, it just doesn't happen, right? So take that however you want to take that, but I think it's super cool that you're putting that stuff out. And I also think that you're well aware that it isn't one of the big 3 or 4 genres that people want in miniature games. It's really outside of those big 3 or 4. And so you're taking a risk that, okay, it's not going to be, or it's definitely a calculated risk that it's not as popular as Space Marines. Yeah, right. Freaking Space Marines. Okay. Well, I won't get ranting about that, but you see what I'm saying. It's like, okay, yeah, I, I just, oh man, it's stuff like I see stuff that um, on social media or whatever online where they put out this sculpt. Let me just give you an example, right? Female orc barbarian sculpt, and people, your mainstream nerds think that it's so different and it's like edgier, it's daring, they're taking a chance. No, they're not. No, they're not doing that. That's been done and done and done. And there's nothing, you want to do something new with, like, the female orc figure, make a female orc, I don't know, samurai, right? make a female, like, you can do, but they're all the same. They're these kind of faceless, soulless, muscularized. They all look like GW, right? They all look like that same kind of, oh well, here's this perfectly proportioned, absolutely uh, perfectly musculatured thing that has absolutely no character to it. And when we try to explain that to somebody who's just impressed with the size of models, you know how a lot of people are just impressed, like, oh, that's a really big model. That's it. They don't know, like, they don't quite understand, um, for lack of a better term, they don't quite understand the other, like the cool or unique factor in miniatures, right? Some miniature sculpts are just ironic. They just think it's ironic. Like, oh, let's just do, I don't know, like a fairy with a chainsaw, huh? Because that's ironic, right? And they think that that's like somehow groundbreaking, or it's not. Okay, groundbreaking stuff is like where you can do that, and it's full of character, and your sculpt can kind of tell a story, and it's not a story that you're familiar with. It's a new story, right? That's that's what I'm getting at. That's it's taken me way too long to say it, but that's that's what I'm getting at. Okay, we'll let Nightwing dry here for a second. Uh, you're working on old school fantasy horrors, a creep show, delving into dark fantasy kung fu. Oh, nice. Yes, you see what I'm saying? There's genres that that you want to cover that I think are outside of the same 3 or 4 things, right? The same 3 or 4 things. Big robot with gun, guy in armor with gun, uh, you know, savage orc thing. They're all those things are very, very, very similar. And it's not, I'm just being real. It's like not, to me, it's just not that impressive. I'm like, when I see the same, and they do them technically well, but they look soulless to me. It's like, I look at that, oh, okay. Like, yes, that is a picture perfect representation of what you would generically think of when you think of a genre. That doesn't make it a good sculpt because it's not, you know what I mean? It just, yeah. I think I'm done with my rant, but that's what I'm getting at. It's like we want to see. There are some really brilliant artists out there, and we want to see the character, their character brilliance come through in their designs. And you have a particular style, and that's awesome. You can't say that. You can't say that the same for a lot of other like miniature lines that are out there. 3D printing's taking the soul miniatures. Yeah, they all. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's another big part to this equation too. Is when you do these like perfectly designed pieces and you print them, you 3D print them, and there's just no character left in the. You're like, okay, I'm gonna pick on. I will name a line because I don't give a shit, right? I will name a line, and people might get mad. I don't care. Um, when you look at the sculpts for Wild West Exodus, right? And I love Weird West. I love Weird West. I play Malifaux, right? It's one of my favorite games. Love Weird West. So it's not the genre that's wrong. I love the steampunk aspect of Wild West Exodus and what they capture there. But when you look at those sculpts, while they are all technically good sculpts, they come off as rather soulless. They just don't. Even though it's like, oh man, have you ever seen a cowboy wielding a Gatling gun with a robotic arm? And you're like, technically no, but I've seen a million models kind of look like that one right there. So I'm not all that. It just doesn't, it doesn't really grab me the way you might think it would. And if you're, and there's a lot of people out there that like they're not really looking for the same thing I am. So they go, well, it reminds me of, you know, World of Warcraft. All the all the dwarves look like World of Warcraft dwarves now. Oh, okay, I think that's so great because I love that game, right? And then it just sort of ends there. They just, okay, well, I really liked that, so I want all the dwarves to, all the elves and all the dwarves and all the orcs to look like World of Warcraft. And I just think it's a shame when you start seeing everything kind of look the same. I loved it back in the day when you bought, you know, and I'm gonna, when you bought Grenadier miniatures, and you could tell, like, okay, that's a Mark Copplestone miniature. You could tell, oh, okay, yeah, that was that sculpt. That's a Julie Guthrie sculpt, right? I might be naming names that nobody knows, but old school miniature people know what I'm talking about. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, You could tell that was a Julie Guthrie sculpt. That was a Mark Copplestone sculpt. That was a, you know, um, you remember that the guy that sculpted for a lot of the older like D&D miniatures, Demise, right, for Ral Partha. Like those, you could tell that what their work was, and you were like, yeah, that's really cool. That that sculptor, I really like, what they did. And believe it or not, even guys like there were some of the first edition 40K miniatures are like you could see like Mark Copplestone sculpts. And you're like, yeah, that's how Mark Copplestone, that's how he liked to sculpt minis. That made a lot of sense. You just don't see it anymore. Now everything just kind of looks the same. Right? Okay. This sculpt is fantastic. I'm really, really enjoying this. Okay. So now let's tone down the entire base. Okay. You're going to tone down this entire base. And then we're going to, I do not want any of this wash to pool. So I'm just going to keep an eye on it. Yeah, these Ammo MIG shaders are awesome. And I got to shade the hair too. I like seeing the old school sculpts since they carry. Yeah, exactly. That's what I like too. I you know I really like being able to see the character of a sculpt and like, oh, okay, that's really neat. And I think other people would look at that and go, well, the proportion isn't 100% right, or there's a weird expression on this model's face. They'll look at it that way. And okay, yeah, I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes I look at a sculpt and go, yeah, I don't really like where they went with that one, or that one just didn't grab me. But I would still rather have that than, all the sculpts look exactly the same. All of the faces of every model looked exactly the same. Let me show you an example. Like if you look at these night models, they are proportionally perfect. And there's a lot of those things that I'm complaining about, at least in theory here, but let me show you an example of why this miniature line is still as awesome as we claim it to be. Okay, let me just dirty up this whole. I know it doesn't look the best right now, but we're gonna just dirty up the whole thing right now. Right? You don't want this to diminish from your attention to the model that is swinging above. Right? We're gonna let that dry. But look at her face. Look at Barbara's face. And it's through a mask. I'm sorry, maybe you can't because it's too shiny. This part of the thing is too shiny right now. But, right? But you can see facial expression in there. Here's a really neat one. And I don't think my camera can't. But you can see, like maybe you can barely see a little bit of her little rictus grin there. And I'm going to be working on that Bewitched Harley a little bit later this week. Right? At least these miniatures have expressions on their faces, and at least they still have very good character. Got a little bummed out when some of the top indie sculptors are switching to 3D. Yeah, but to play the flip side of the argument here, it is faster. Ah, you need to go to bed.
I'm done with this board.
You done with that one? Here, let me turn it off. Bring it here. Turn that off.
The green one?
Yes, you can, son. I'm gonna charge this for you, okay? Close my door. Close my door, son. Thank you. Good night, son. All right. So, yeah, like I can also understand. And again, some of that is driven by the manufacturers and by the customer base. Lots of customer base people that right? That they've proven that perfectly buff Space Marines are what people like. So I can't blame the artists 100% for switching or for meeting what they think the market wants. And I think they're right. I think the market does kind of like what they like. All right, so we're going to dirty up the base a little bit here. So when you're working on the base stuff, again, it's all macro stuff. I just really like working on stuff like getting the tones right. Skin tones look good. Now let that dry for a second, and then continue to paint a little there. Yeah, yeah. It is. You know, it's a new era for the miniature hobby in general, right? This resin, at least it's not brittle, but the downside is it gets really crusty in places, right? There's areas where it's nice and smooth, but then there are other areas where it's just very crusty. So now I'm gonna bring back some of that base color again. Let me add a little depth to the hair. Right, like the tips here on the edge of on each of these little edges of the cape. They're just crusty. There's not much you can do about it. I like the way you pick the color to focus key areas. Oh, thanks. Okay. And I'm going to do a little light rust wash on her hair. I know this whole thing is like still very wet here, and it's going to look a little weird on camera. Well, it's super reflective. There we go. All right. So we got Babs. And he's looking pretty good. Actually, what I want to do is just a tiny little, let's see. Let's see if I can do this without drawing too much attention away. This is what I was just talking about. Like, don't overdo stuff like this, but I'm gonna try to do. Okay. This is very subtle, right? Right, I'm just gonna do a little tiny little green. I'm gonna do this on both models. Tiny little green on the bottom. That's it. You probably can't even see any of this on camera. But there is some green in that, believe it or not. It just looks like smudge. Right? I want that tiny little green. Okay. Same here. Tiny little green. Okay. Actually, didn't even do that part very well, but okay. Okay. And then let's, I mean, these are, make sure I'm good to go. Okay. Yeah. I know I went super fast. Do layer dark grays to highlight the black color. Yeah, actually, so in this case, what I did was, uh, right, rubber black base coat, and then, this was a stormy gray glaze as a highlight. Sometimes you do that with like a midnight blue if you want the blue to pop, and then, or the other option is you could do both of these. Let's say I wanted a blue, um, like a blue feel to the black. You could even use like a blue wash, and that these are, here's another product I will rave about too. If you can find MIG shaders, they are awesome. Love MIG shaders. Love MIG shaders. They do what uh, the old as hold on. Let's see if I can find one. Do I even have one? Oh, I do. So the old Citadel washes are very good. Citadel shades, they're very good. The problem is when they dry, they would get real sticky. You could end up with weird patches using these types of washes. The MIG shaders, like you can clean them up. You can clean them up, you can tone up, you can tone down. They're super, super thin. You can use them as even like a cheap liner if you want. Um, yeah, this is, I'm just, I know I sound like a shill tonight. I don't know why, but oh, here's another color you can use. Dark gray is really nice too if you're working on black. And then it just kind of depends on, uh, like, do you want the black to look shiny? Do you want it to look flat? This is going to look a little flat if I don't wash it. So I'm actually thinking about washing it, and you won't see anything other than sheen on it. In fact, let me go ahead and do that. And now you can do, so if I do like clear smoke, this is going to leave a sheen, right? And that is kind of what I'm going for right now. What I don't want this to do is make it look like jet black, right? That's the risk that you run, is you don't want that final wash step to make it look jet black. You just want, and let me show you here, give you an example. So I'm not going to put much down. I'm just going to kind of move it all over the place. And it's going to get in those crevices like you want, but importantly, you also, in this case, I want it to impart a little bit of sheen, right? Because you want Nightwing's costume to look a little shiny. I don't know why. I think it's because you think of that movie armor, the Batman movie armor, and how kind of shiny and rubbery it looks. That's what I would do here. So I'm just trying to get that. There we go. And that's going to impart a little bit of sheen to it when it dries. And then when you're done, you seal it with a satin and you just kind of level everything off. Blonde hair and black colors, yeah. Cool. Well, happy to be a help, sir. All right. Let's go ahead. I think, yeah. I knew this was going to be a short stream because the other two models are going to take a bit more time. I'll show you the models but I'm not going to start either one of them tonight. But we'll cap these guys off. Yeah, night models, their sculpts they're freaking ridiculously good. They are extremely good. But sometimes you get problems with the resin. Sometimes while you know the sculpt is amazing, the clarity, the execution can be an issue at times. Yeah. The Nightwing sculpt with like the electro bat sticks. It looks like he's just holding shake weights. It's pretty funny. All right. So I'll let these dry. And I'm sorry that we're not gonna see these totally dry and sealed, but you know, I guess if you really want to see them, you can check them out on Instagram, because that's typically. In fact, I haven't put up I was supposed to put up some Infinity models that I recently finished. I had to put those on Instagram. I don't know. Why do I do that? I don't know. It's a nice way to keep track of stuff I've painted. And when people want to see an example of something, my Instagram turned out to be a pretty comprehensive library of certain miniature lines. So you could see most of it all like painted. You're like, oh, where's the new? Yeah, you can find it on there. All right, so before I head out, here's a couple of the sculpts I will be working on next. This is a really cool one, Red Rain Batman. You can see I'm working on the mouth right now. Right, basically vampire Batman. Cool. It's gonna be pretty dark. Obviously, all the colors are gonna be super dark on this. The skull is gonna be light, and then there's gonna be kind of a red glow to the mini. Right, so we got him to look forward to, and then obviously Bewitched Harley. You can see I just started skin and facial details there. With Harley, the weird thing is I always start with regular skin, which is kind of a waste of time, right? Because technically you don't, her skin is going to end up all the way out here, right? Heavy warm gray. She's all the way her skin is going to be all the way out here. There is no reason, there's no logical reason to start here. But for me, it's how my brain works. Like I need to have that warmth of um, like regular human base skin and then work my way all the way over to here. Just because that's Harley Quinn. Her skin is like super duper light. So yeah, it is going to take a little bit longer. Plus it looks like there's going to be some freehand on the stockings. That's going to be kind of a pain. Yeah, this model is going to take some time. So anyways, one final look. I know they're still wet, so they're shiny looking. You're not going to see too much going on here while it's drying. But here's classic Batgirl, which is awesome. And then we got, yeah, Mr. Workout Man himself, Dick Grayson here. So anyways, that is going to do it for this stream. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sorry I haven't done a stream in a while. I'll try to, I've got a pretty full commission schedule coming up, so should be better opportunities to stream stuff. Hopefully it's not all like crazy batch paints. I love jobs like this where it's like, okay, here's some 4 really cool characters. Let's just paint those. All right, so anyways, thanks everyone for watching. Have a good night, and we'll catch you on the next one.